Well, 2024 has now come and gone, and boy, did I get some fantastic holy places. I visited 48 holy places this year, and it was actually really hard to narrow down my favorites to just the top 10. This process can be agonizing, especially with so many to choose from. For example, do I put in the famous Brighton Temple, the most visited Buddhist temple on Oahu? A beautiful building in an absolutely stunning location, but out of 14 Buddhist temples I visited in Hawaii alone, was it actually my favorite? The answer is no, it wasn't. So then, what about St. Catherine Greek Orthodox Church in Greenwood Village, Colorado? With my recently growing interest in Orthodox churches, this one was right up my alley, and I loved it. But there were so many others that were even more spectacular, so even this beauty wasn't quite up there. In Colorado alone, there were such gorgeous churches to be found. St. Mary's in Colorado Springs was the first one I ever learned about in Colorado, and it was a treat to finally see it. Another St. Mary's in Aspen was the first one I actually saw on my trip to Colorado, and even that did not quite make the cut of my top 10. So what, you may ask, could I have found that beat out these fantastic holy places? Wait and see. These are my top 10 holy places in 2024. Coming in at number 10, we have the Thedraa Mountain Center. I got to see some beautiful Buddhist temples in various places this year, but the Thedraa Mountain Center was a unique one for me. This Colorado gem is tucked away in the mountains at a retreat center. You have to hike from the cabins about a mile to get there, but it is totally worth it. The place is so quiet and peaceful, and that crisp mountain air is perfection. I happened to get there first thing in the morning before anyone was up yet, so I had the place entirely to myself. This building was beautiful inside and out with great colorful details. A fresh snow made everything seem even more calm, and it was a great place to sit and contemplate. Number 9 is the Taylorsville Temple in Utah. The Latter-day Saints are building temples at an incredible speed these days, and it's been hard to keep up with all the new ones being dedicated in Utah alone. We have more scheduled for completion this year as well. But the Taylorsville Temple is my favorite of the recent additions. I watched this temple progress in its construction before I even realized what it was, so it was fun keeping track on my way to and from work every day as it developed and took shape. The look is rather different from most temples, but I loved the design and style, and it looks absolutely fantastic at sunrise. Number 8 is Brighton, Colorado's Wat Buddha Punyaram. I did not get to see inside given that they were holding a funeral service for one of the monks, but the outside was such a treat. I loved the bright yellow color of the buildings, and I really loved the colorful dragons. They adorned the entrance of both the larger temple and the smaller shrine to the side. What's more, the new Lotus Blossom sculpture at the entrance will be enhanced to include its own dragon wrapped around the blossom. In addition to the buildings, this one also has a sculpture garden, which I really loved. My favorite was this intricate piece at the start of the sculpture trail. To many Western eyes, the bright array of colors that are often used in places like this can seem jarring, at least at first. We get so used to more subtle and muted tones, but God gave us so many colors, and I love seeing people use them. More and more, I am drawn to colorful buildings rather than neutral ones. That's something you'll notice as we continue. Number 7 is the Chinese Buddhist Association Hsu-Yun Temple in Honolulu. Out of 17 places I visited on Oahu, 14 of them were Buddhist temples. This one is found in its own little park, and it's completely charming. A colorful exterior and an even more colorful interior with lots of details, including numerous sculptures. Despite this temple being in the middle of a bustling city, the park itself was largely devoid of the noise of the surrounding life and was incredibly peaceful. Number 6 is the Sri Venkateswara Swami Temple, a Hindu temple found in Castle Rock, Colorado. I've always had a bit of a weakness for Hindu temples, and this is no exception. I was not allowed to take any photos inside, which can be common in Hindu temples, but the exterior offered no shortage of beauty to be photographed. The carved towers that are popular among Hindu temples feature various figures and sculptures carved out of white stone, but I especially liked the painted figures that adorned the roof near the entrance and the sides. As always, color is often what draws me in. The temple itself is situated in a vast open space, so it feels like it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and while I was there, I got to watch as Hindu priests performed their morning rituals. Number 5 on my list is St. Peter and Paul Orthodox Church in Salt Lake City. Over the past couple of years, I have just fallen in love with Orthodox churches, and I began a sort of quest to discover as many as I could in the United States. In 2024, I discovered 4 Orthodox churches in Utah that I had never heard of before, 3 of them in the Salt Lake area. St. Peter and Paul delighted me with its open interior painted in a vibrant blue. The day I visited, I also got to stay and experience part of a Sunday service, and it was amazing. The entire congregation was singing and chanting. The spiritual energy was palpable. The church itself seemed to become even more breathtaking because of the songs. At number 4, we have another Orthodox church, this time in Colorado. The Holy Theophany Orthodox Church in Colorado Springs was one of those experiences that just blew me away. I arrived a little before Vespers and was guided into this small but overwhelming church that was simply covered in iconography, from the walls to the ceiling and to even the columns in the entryway. They lit the chandelier, and then they started to light the ceremonial candles one by one. It was dim when I first stepped inside, and little by little the candles illuminated the space in a completely magical way. There's something incredible about being in a church that is lit primarily by candles. They offered prayers and song as they prepared the church, and it was one of the most beautiful things I have ever witnessed. Number 3 on our list is the Mukso Korean Buddhist Temple. This temple is up in the hills on Oahu and was not only my favorite Buddhist temple of the year, but also my husband's. This is a small temple complex with multiple buildings and a garden park with greenery and statuary. The smaller building, painted with colorful patterns all around, is just as colorfully painted inside, including the 4 larger-than-life statues. They can be a bit intimidating, but they're a fascinating piece of Asian culture here in the U.S. The larger temple was even more incredible. Continuing with the same sorts of colors, particularly the red and blue, this building contained various statues of the Buddha, most of them in gold, and the main altar featured a dragon overhead, which is always a crowd pleaser. At number 2, we have another of the Utah surprises this year. As much as I loved St. Peter and Paul, the Prophet Elias Greek Orthodox Church in Holiday was even better. The altar was very grand, the iconography was stunning, and the painted ceiling was an incredible work of art. At one point in time, the ceiling was done in mosaic, which would match the panels inserted into the brick wall on the left side of the church interior. However, as the glue used to attach the tiles to the ceiling began to age, it weakened, and bits of ceiling started to fall into the congregation. Not what you want in the middle of a service. Rather than risk the same thing happening again if they repaired it, they opted to remake the ceiling and paint it instead. I hope you've been enjoying this list, but before we get to my top pick, just a quick reminder. If you like the video and want to see more, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a lot. And don't forget to like and comment. Let us know what your favorite one was. And finally, we come to the number 1 holy place in our top 10, my very favorite of 2024. The Assumption of the Theotokos in Glendale, Colorado. This church almost broke my beauty-loving brain. I was guided through by a very kind gentleman who you could just tell was so delighted and proud of the church he was part of. We entered a stunning chapel of gold and colorful figures. All of this colorful work, including the gold, is mosaic. Highly detailed images of saints, all made out of tiny glass tiles. Even the ceiling, another masterpiece in gold, was mosaic work. As I was enthusing over all the gorgeous workmanship, my guide grinned and said, "Wait until you see the main church." I kind of gaped at him and said, "Wait, this isn't the main church?" He just laughed and led this stunned photographer out of the chapel and around the corner to the main church. And when I entered, my jaw dropped to the floor and I stood there with eyes as wide as a child's. The ceiling of the church, painted a rich blue, is massive. It hovers more than 60 feet above you and has so much iconography that they actually had to give me a cheat sheet to learn which was which. The figure of Mary with her arms outstretched in loving welcome is also a mosaic and seems to actually draw you in as though she is encompassing the entire congregation at once. The columns of the altar are magnificent. Again, these are mosaics. I have never seen columns with mosaics like these, bright, colorful, and exquisitely detailed. This is definitely one of the most awe-inspiring churches I have ever seen, and I knew right away that this is going to define my 2024 Holy Places experience. I literally wept as I struggled to take it all in. This is exactly the kind of beauty that inspires me, that draws me closer to God, and I cannot help but yearn for God when I am in a space like this. The beauty touches my soul so deeply that I am moved to tears. Beauty is powerful, and this is the message I hope to keep spreading. I hope 2025 brings even more beauty into all our lives. I cannot wait to see what surprises are in store this year.